Through YouTube. Okay, we're live. Go ahead, Eduarda. Eduarda, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Eduarda Lal, and I am the president of the Federation of Portuguese, Canadian, and Business Professionals, affectionately known as the Federation. First of all, I wish to thank the essential workers who continue to selflessly serve others on the front lines as we share in this battle against COVID-19. Through these challenging times, it is vital that we do our part in keeping you connected, informed, and safe. Before we begin, we would like to thank today's event sponsors, as well as thank our corporate sponsors for their unwavering support. I would also like to personally acknowledge and thank the founders of the Federation, past presidents, and boards for keeping the tradition. Part of our mission of the Federation is to promote business activity, foster professionalism, and to advocate for the prominence of our members within and outside of the Portuguese Canadian business and professional community. In order to fulfill this mandate, the Federation today is so proud to launch a 4-part bi-monthly inclusive virtual speaker series. So on behalf of the Federation, I would like to welcome the dynamic panel of speakers who represent all 3 levels of government and who have ties to our community. Today's discussion is about saving lives and livelihoods, COVID-19, government support for small business. So without further ado, everyone help me welcome my colleague, Federation board member, co-curator of the speaker series, and today's moderator, Angie Camara.
Obrigada, Eduarda. Bem-vindo. Welcome, everyone, especially those being introduced to the Federation for the very first time. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're thrilled to launch this platform, which features Portuguese Canadian leaders and friends of our community. Before we dive in, here's some key information on how to join the conversation. This is your chance to participate. We are live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, both on the Federation channels, as well as Camões TV and Camões Radio. É prazer estar aqui convosco. If you'd like to share your ideas, voice your concerns, or if you have a specific question for the panel that is critical to the survival and the sustainability of small businesses, please use the comment section on any of the platforms. We're capturing everything in the back end, and we'll try to get to as many questions and concerns as you have today. I'll be integrating most of the topical questions right into the conversation and won't be waiting to the end. So fire away, but rest assured if we don't get to it, all panelists will receive your questions for consideration. Now, we all know we're living in a very surreal moment of history. One that kind of feels like we're actors in a real life science fiction movie. We've been pretty much on a mission critical situation, but we're finally beginning to see some positive outcomes, especially on the public health front. Overall numbers going in the right direction, which is down. Practically overnight though, our governments had to pivot quickly in order to save lives and livelihoods due to COVID-19. In governments, agility is often at odds with transparency and accountability. Yet, all 3 levels of government have been agile and trying to serve the needs of all Canadians. Now, as we begin to adapt to a new normal, are we looking at a restart? Are we looking to restart the economy? Or is it a rebirth, kind of like a renaissance? But I really want to put this topic into some context. Let's put some context around saving lives and lives livelihoods. Small businesses, as we all know, are at the heart and soul of communities and essential to the economic, cultural, and social fabric of communities. 70% of Canadians work in small business. Combined, pretty much Canada's largest employer. They include, your favorite restaurants, bars, bakeries, you name it. Tech startups, convenience stores, and so much more. Thinking about my neighborhood without some of these staples breaks my heart. Yet, we're seeing many are shutting down permanently. So how do we mitigate more small business casualties, and how do we save and protect lives while also putting supports in place to save and protect livelihoods? This is the focus of our discussion today. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel. Member of Parliament representing Mississauga East and Cooksville, Peter Fonseca. Member of Provincial Parliament representing Mississauga Streetsville, and Parliamentary Assistant to Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Nina Tangri. And City of Toronto Deputy Mayor and City Councillor from Ward 9 Davenport, Ana Bailao. Também como ex-presidente de Federação em 2005 e 2006. Thank you all for participating today. Our panel is going to make some opening remarks, and then we'll jump right into the discussion. So let's begin with Peter Fonseca, please.
Well, thank you so much, Angie and Eduarda, your president, and our host here today. I want to thank the Federation and for putting this series together. I have to say, one of the most important things that is getting us through COVID-19 is really to have everybody as well informed as they possibly can be. And that works through organizations like yours. I want to also thank Camoins TV and radio for putting this across a number of platforms so that everybody can hear what we have to say today and have the opportunity to ask the questions that they have. I also hope that everybody at the Federation, your families, your friends, and the community at large is safe and healthy and abiding by the best practices so that we can protect each other. So I just want to thank everybody. It's wonderful to be here with my colleagues from different levels of government. Of course, Ana Bailao from the City of Toronto, Nina Tangri from the province of Ontario. And as was said by Angie, we are working so well together. So all three levels of government are collaborating on the hour, on the day, week, month. Sometimes days feel like eternities, during this time. And what's important is that we do this in a very transparent and accountable way, and listen to what businesses and what people have to say to us. And I can say that that has been really I think the most important thing that we've done is listening. And listening to not only our scientists and to be able to make decisions that are evidence-based, but also to our businesses. And where are those pressure points? Where are they experiencing difficulties, and where do they need help? So as a federal government with the support of all the other levels of government, and to be able to get to those precious important dollars onto the street. The first thing actually that we did was a repatriation effort, and that was bringing Canadians, once this hit us from all over the world, didn't matter if it was Portugal or India or Poland, to bring everybody back to Canada in a safe way. And that was quite an undertaking. Nothing like that had happened before since really the world wars. After that, we had to look at how we were going to help people stay whole, or to be able to address the many pressures that they had within their families. So we came up with, which everybody's heard about, the CERB, which Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. And beyond that, then moving into kind of the business sector and providing for wage subsidies, rent assistance, students that may not have jobs this summer, so emergency student benefits and programs. All of this done in collaboration again with all levels of government to be able to learn from this, to provide those those resources, that assistance, and then really is, as Angie said, as the you know the bringing down of the curve or the lowering of the curve, and hopefully we'll get to the point where nobody's contracting COVID-19, and then we can come out of this a lot stronger. But the only way that we can do that is by doing that all together. And I mean that by all levels of government, but also working with all the entire business sector, with organizations like the Federation, and those really on the street that know what's happening on a day-to-day and are able to better inform us so that we can get those resources where they're needed most. That's kind of, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. I just want to thank the community for staying so strong. It's really been a Team Canada approach, and one that I think we can all be very proud of in terms of the job that we've done thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Nina, let's hear from you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to Eduarda and to you, Angie, for that kind introduction earlier, and for inviting me to join you today. And to the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business and Professionals and Journal Millennial Stadium for hosting this event to discuss COVID-19 government supports and our road to recovery. The number one priority of our government, and I think I can say for all levels of government, is the health and safety of our communities. However, as we think about the real long-term impacts of the COVID-19 outbreak, we also need to ensure we are prepared once the state of emergency is lifted, so that people can safely and confidently participate in local life again. Over the past months, people and businesses have done their part to contain this virus, but as we all see, the impacts of the following public health advice comes at a cost to our families, to our workers, businesses, and of course to our communities. Ontario was very swift in introducing supports for businesses and community members. On March 24th, our government introduced Ontario's action plan to fight COVID-19, where we committed $17 billion in support, 10 billion of that in cash flow through tax relief and other deferrals. We allowed businesses to defer about almost $2 billion in WSIB premiums, and we provided municipalities the option to defer property tax payments by deferring municipal remittance of the education property tax to the province. That was about another 1.8 billion in relief. And we provided another 6 billion in relief through a penalty and interest-free period applied to select taxes like gas tax, tobacco tax, employer health tax. And for this year alone, the employer health tax exemption was raised first from the 490,000 of remuneration now to $1 million. So this affects and supports over 57,000 employers. We've been working closely with the federal government to support their programs as well, such as the joint Ontario-Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. And we've worked together and have had a lot of supports, but we know there's still gaps. Together with Mississauga MP Peter Fonseca and Deputy Mayor Anna Bailao from the City of Toronto, I look forward to hearing from you as to what we may be missing and what the government can potentially do to help, and as well as answer any questions that you may have. So thank you very much for inviting me again today. Thank
you, Nina. And now we'll hear from a former president of the Federation, 2005 and 2006, Anna Bailao.
Thanks, Angie, and thank you to the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business and Professionals for hosting this forum. I think, as Peter said, it is incredibly important to ensure that people have the right information and that we are hearing from you on some of your9concerns and some of the work that we're doing and where we need to do more. This is an unprecedented situation, and we're all building the airplane as we're taking off. So that's no better way to put it. We are all learning about the virus. We are all learning how to live with the virus, and we're all learning how to cope with the virus. And so for that, thank you to the Federation. Thank you to Camões Radio and TV to put this out there. I also want to take this introduction to thank all the small businesses that are probably listening to us, because this is very much of interest to them. We're going to be talking a lot about small business, because to the ones that are open, that make sure that we have access to our food, to our services that are essential for us to continue to be at home. Thank you. Thank you for being out there. Thank you for allowing us to have access to what we need to be at home. And for the ones that close, thank you, because you are making a huge sacrifice so that we can bend this curve and we can fight this. So to all of you, my deepest gratitude. I want to point out something that Angie said, which is the vibrancy, the energy, the economic impact that small business has in our cities, and especially in our main streets. If we imagine our main streets without the small businesses that we have, what would be of cities, what would be of our communities, what would be of our neighborhoods? And that's very much what we think about when we put support services, like we did a partnership with the Toronto Board of Trade to have a support center for the small business. As we did yesterday, we launched a program that is Shop Here, to create online assistance for the shoppers. There's a partnership between the City of Toronto and Shopify. And just in one day, we were able to register 372 developers and 3,771 online stores are going to be developed. In one day, we were able to start connecting these dots and have these partnerships to support the stores as they're open, to get this presence as well. Programs like the Curb TO to assist on the curb pickup, programs like the Active TO to make sure that people feel comfortable and safe to come out of their houses, to walk, and being able to support their local businesses. As Nina said, we were able to defer the taxes, which was an important step in this first few months to both residential and commercial, the property taxes and the utility bills that had been deferred. So we have been trying to support our local businesses as much as possible. Also being a voice, because obviously municipal government is very close to the day-to-day activities of residents and small businesses. And so we've also been a very strong conduit to some of their concerns and some of the changes that we've all heard from our constituents. And I'm sure that Peter and Nina, we've all talked about some of those programs as they started to being rolled out. We had to make some changes and adaptations, because like I said at the beginning, we are building this airplane as it's taking off. So we're all learning. And that's why sessions like today are also so important. So we continue not only to give you the information that you need, but also to hear what is not working, what needs to be addressed. So I'm really looking forward to answer to some of these questions and to have a really interesting conversation, so we can continue to support our residents and our small business as we live through this pandemic.
Thank you, Anna. Well, that's great. Like I said, all three levels of our government have really stepped up and doing really incredible, agile work. And some of the initiatives that you've described are an unintended positive consequence, such as trying to have small businesses, digitally adapt to today's way of doing business. So let's just talk about the small businesses and their staff. And I'll address this to Peter when it comes to your payroll program right now. So, many businesses are worried, especially those that are opening up, next month in June, when they're finally allowed to do so and it's safer. Some are worried that this may be canceled by the time, and we all know that, let's take restaurants for lack of a better example, that they will most likely be at 50% or less capacity due to physical distancing. So what are there any plans, if you have any insight on that, please?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Angie. And you know, when as Anna was saying, you know, the plane's flying and we're building it as we go along. So this is new to everyone. If you were to tell me some of the programs that have been put together, like the wage subsidy or like the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, that could be done within weeks, I would say that is completely impossible for government to be able to do that. These are programs that would take years to develop and to implement and to roll out. So, and they've been able to be done within weeks. So that's a very important point. And I say that because it is a fluid situation. And as a fluid situation, we're learning every single day. So we want to make sure that we make the right decision at the right time. So the wage subsidy is in place right now. We'll see how that kind of rolls out, how it's helping business, and then down the road we'll see what else is necessary. So as we evolve, taking care of the healthcare side, but also the economy, I believe it is, as I said, very fluid because it is all new to everybody. And the learning points are very important. So as we hear more from, be it the hospitality sector with the restaurants, or be it you know, travel or aviation, you know, all these different sectors have different touch points, and they're letting us know, yeah, this is working really well, or this may need to be you know, prolonged, or something may not be having the effect that we're looking for. So what's important is the Federation, and through your membership and businesses right across our country from coast to coast to coast, keep government well informed, and it's kind of a back and forth in terms of that those communication channels.
Thanks. And I like, you know, it really, what got to me was that when you said, you know, we're doing the right things at the right time. However, for some small businesses, Nina, they're running out of time, and some have already ran out of time and had to close their doors. Specifically, you know, we know when it comes to small businesses, there's, you know, three big things: staff, commercial rent, operations. So rent right now, many are very, very worried. You know, May has come and gone, and the next rent is due just in 2 short weeks. Some are calling for, you know, a moratorium on evictions. You know, what do you say to business owners who are really concerned?
Well, Angie, I completely agree. It's been very, very difficult for many businesses, and a lot of our businesses are mom and pop shops, and they put their whole life savings into their business. So for what they have been going through, and many of them are not eligible for any of the programs that we've put out. So for those, it has been very difficult, and some may not survive this, which is very, very unfortunate. The program that the Ontario and the federal government put together on the subsidies for the landlords to help them and subsidize, so that only 25% of the rent would be paid by the tenant, 25% by the landlord, and then 50% would be shared by the federal and provincial governments. That only started yesterday, so we're watching the uptake on that, and to see how many businesses or how many landlords will participate into that program, to see if that's a program that will work. We've heard from many tenants who are concerned that their landlords are telling them that they may not participate, so they're not able to take part in that, which is really which is going to be very sad. We hope that most landlords will participate in that. However, there are many areas where there's going to be, when we only have 50% capacity, for example, for a restaurant, the restaurant's going to take into consideration the cost of operating that business. So if they have a chef, they have wait staff, if they have a patio. So how many people do they bring in that they have to put on salary versus the intake and the sales that they may have? It just may not be enough for them to survive. I know many of our restaurants are doing takeout right now, or curbside pickup, and it's helped them, and they're using Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes to deliver, and that has its other concerns, but they're trying very, very hard to survive through this and to take some income as much as they possibly can, especially for the smaller restaurants. But what we're trying to see right now is the uptake on the commercial rent program so that we can make sure that tenants are able to participate. But we ask the tenants work with their landlords and vice versa to come to some arrangement. If they're not participating, to have some arrangement, and just to realize that everybody's in the same boat right now. I call this a moving target each and every day, that we're really just trying to find the best results to do things the best way. And let's see over the next coming days and next week of how many are participating in this program to see if it needs adjusting at all.
Okay. Angie, can I add something to this conversation? I don't know if you had the opportunity to see the TABIA, which is the head organization of all the business improvement areas in Toronto, actually released the results of a survey that they had with the BIAs. And they had some interesting numbers. 63% of the businesses that I interviewed in Toronto could not make all of May's rent. 63%. 74.4% of the businesses feel they will not make all of June's rent. And 81% of the landlords, so they interviewed landlords and the tenants, so the business and the property owners, because this is around this program to try to give us governments information about how the program is doing. So 81.2% of the landlords did not receive all of May's rent. So this is a huge piece of anxiety that there is out there. Actually, 43% of businesses are concerned about being locked out. So
and what happens when they're locked out? The landlord can seize whatever's inside, right? So it's kind of like a double hit sometimes.
Yeah. I've actually been on the phone with a lot of landlords in my area and tenants and have had conversations with both. And because before these programs come into place, we were asking people to come together to try to make arrangements to work together. And some of them are more willing than others. I think some people have not, people think that we're going to go back to normal, very soon, like this. One day we switch the light on, and we're not. And I've tried to have a lot of conversations saying, we need to work together, because you might get rid of a tenant, and what good does it make that you have your store space empty for the next 8 months, 6 months, a year? Who knows what's going to happen to the economy, how easy it's going to be to open another business. So I've been bringing that issue up as well. But businesses have, we've been doing a lot of advocacy and work with both the provincial and federal government to come with this program together. And it's good that they've been listening, and they need to continue listening, because there's been a lot of feedback given to the governments. But it's a major concern for our municipal governments as well, because there's going to be thousands and thousands of jobs and street fronts and stores that are in these really tough situations, and are looking to all of us to come through with assistance with some of these programs.
Yeah, none of us have a crystal ball, so we don't know what the future is going to look like or what it's going to bring. Many small business owners, it's all about survival right now. It's all about survival. So it's about the supports that they receive today. And for some of them, they need it as soon as possible. But, it is said that we should never waste a crisis. So there are a lot of learnings, and, I'd be interested at the federal level, what have you learned, Peter? Or what has been perhaps reaffirmed about Canadians during this pandemic?
Well, what I think we've all learned is that we are a very strong country, including our beloved animals, little dogs, Anna, and it is about the learning. So if you think about when the pandemic kind of hit our shores, it was in late January, where British Columbia, being the first to have a outbreak, and they already had a sense because of what was happening in Washington State. And from there, we entered into a long-term care home. So there was a lot of learning, and that continues today. So what's happening on the healthcare side with the Ministry of Health, and of course all our ministries right across our country, and our public health authorities, all working together in terms of best practices to be able to, in some places they're looking at opening up schools and have started there. Everybody is making sure that kind of they're under the microscope to see how things are working out. And of course, as we start to open up more and more businesses, we will continue to have those learnings. So that learning, it never stops, and that is really that virtuous circle that's going to inform government to be able to take the next step and the next step and the next step as we move forward. And hopefully what we don't want to do is take too big a leap and then really go backwards and find ourselves with another wave of COVID. So we would like to continue with these learnings. And in government, as I said earlier in my just opening remarks, I'm not sure what's happening at the municipal, provincial level, but I can tell you at the federal level, I would never believe the way that civil servants, everybody was able to come together and to really rethink the way that we work. Many of us having to work remotely, but to be able to provide those services to Canadians that are in really dire need. So civil servants that are working long hours into the night, on weekends, etc., and working very differently from how they used to kind of manage day to day in the past. Everybody understands that we've got to roll up our sleeves. This isn't new normal, and that the most important thing is to get those lifelines, to get that help to our citizens, to Canadians, as well as to our businesses. We have to remember that the businesses, as Nina and Anna and others have said here, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, they have put their lives into these businesses. All of their savings, in many cases, many years have been invested, and they are very proud of these businesses. And during all that time, they've hired people, they've created jobs, they've taken many risks, as we know, and they've paid a lot of taxes. And now it's really government's time, and in this time, this is the most important time, is to be able to provide back the supports that they need, that lifeline, that to be able to get them through so that they recover and we can emerge much stronger on the other end.
I completely agree with you. We can emerge much stronger. And I just want to say one comment to Anna. Anna, you hit the nail on the head. Landlords and businesses must come together to survive together. So, let's talk about that type of collaboration as it relates to all three levels of government. From the outside looking in, and I agree with Peter, never seen this much collaboration, integration before. So, Nina, what have you learned about, being so interactive with the other three levels, on a day-to-day basis? What are some of the opportunities now that you potentially see for working together in the future?
Well, I think what's been very, very important is that we've put partisanship aside. This is not a time for politics. It's a time to work together to make sure the interests of all of our constituents are met. So I think it's just been excellent the way that our Premier has been not only speaking and working with the Prime Minister, but also the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland. And the working relationship with some of the other premiers. We're all in this together. It's not us versus them. It's how do we get through this? How do we help the safety and the health of our citizens to make sure we get through this, that we don't have a relapse like Peter was just saying. We have to make sure that as we're learning and thinking about opening up our businesses, that we do it in a way that people understand that we will need to continue physical distancing for at least some time into the future. I've learned so much each and every day. I'm learning, and I think it's just it's been excellent the way that the municipalities, the province, regions, and the federal government have really come together and like I said, put partisanship aside and really look at how we can work collaboratively in a way that just take something like the PPEs that we've heard each and every day, personal protective equipment for our frontline healthcare workers. Who'd have thought that we would be in dire need of those when the whole world globally right now, everybody's looking for the same thing. So we've seen many companies come to the forefront. I know on our Ontario Together website, many companies came to us. A company close by, close to my riding, Medtronic, they make ventilators, but they're made in Ireland. So we worked with them to ask them to build more ventilators for us here. But you know what, they were making 300 a week, they're now making 1,000 a week. However, they have a policy in place that it goes to the most critical areas first, which of course was Asia, and then Africa, then Europe, and only now North America would be on their radar. So what they did, they worked with some of our local companies here to retool and build and give away their intellectual property, giving us the specifications so that they can build ventilators, which is what we've been doing. You know, the best case scenario is that we have hundreds and hundreds of ventilators we may never need. Hopefully we will not need, but we're prepared. And similarly with masks, with gowns, with face shields, many companies have really stepped up to the plate, and we really want to thank them for being extremely creative. So that is something, and I know federally they've been, the procurement process it's been very difficult. We've heard about planes going to China, not being able to pick up the product to come back. And the cost of that in of itself is extremely large. But the product was not ready to get onto those planes. So it's been very challenging. And, you know, I know everyone's probably been hearing from their constituents about the having on the Ontario Drug Benefit Program, where many of our seniors are picking up their prescriptions. They're only able to pick up 30 days at a time, where previously they were able to pick up for 3 months. So now they have each time they have to pay a dispensing fee, which was not very appropriate. So we were working with the pharmacists to try and find a way to share that cost so that our seniors were not burdened. And I want to thank the federal government today for putting out a program to help our seniors. So maybe that is one area where they're not having to pay extra as well. Many pharmacists have also stepped up, so I have to give it to them. I've been in touch with the president of the generic pharmaceutical companies to ask them, you know, where are we? Why do we have a supply problem? So what they're saying is our local supply is quite fine. Unfortunately, similarly with the PPEs, trying to get products from abroad to come into Canada has been a challenge logistically. So we're still working with them and to try and make sure that we never have a supply shortage of our most needed drugs, especially. So it has been certainly a great progress that we've been making, being able to work collaboratively with each and every level of government. And I think that we're in a position now where we've all been able to come forward, step up to the plate and say, you know, and I think this is where governments really are challenged, that we're really, you know, we're put on the hot seat. And I think all levels of government have really stepped up to the plate. So I appreciate that from them.
Way to go, Team Canada. So I'm really glad you brought up procurement, because we have a question. We have a few regarding government procurements. But first, I have a question for Anna regarding barriers to, you know, allowing people to get up back on their feet. You know, we have a new barrier, which is physical distancing, but constant ones that we see in municipalities right across the country, which is childcare, housing. You know, what are some of the strategies, new or, you know, ones that have either been accelerated or that you're planning, you'd really like to see come to fruition, that you can tell us about that helps to, you know, break down some of these sometimes systematic barriers?
Well, I think that if people in the initial few days of the pandemic thought this was, you know, the most democratic thing we had coming our way, because it doesn't choose, you know, rich or poor, this virus, you know, you're all susceptible to the virus. Very soon after, we saw that this virus actually unveiled the deep inequality and flaws that we have in our society. So all that came very soon to the forefront in our country. The people that are getting more affected, the issues where we're having, from our homeless population to some of these issues that were coming through. And I think we have an opportunity as we plan to come out of the pandemic, as we manage the pandemic. I think we do have an opportunity to tackle some of these issues if we look at recovery with the lens that we're going to tackle those issues. And I think these are important. And the way that the governments respond with some of these programs and making sure that, for example, there were programs directed for violence against women, because we knew that this was going to be an issue, and the federal government came with programs. Even the ones that was announced today at seniors, there was we acknowledged that in some of these issues, we knew that there was already an issue before. And I think that not only are we trying to deal with what we have in front of us, but I think it opens the door to the conversation as we recover. What else do we have to do? I've heard the federal minister of infrastructure talking about, the stimulus plan that we need to come through, and how do we make sure that has an equity lens, that it has, for example, an environmental lens, so that not only we create the stimulus, but we can leverage that stimulus into some of those inequalities that we have and some of those goals that we have as a country, as a province, and as a city. And I think that's what we need to move. That's why, the investment in housing, in transit, in childcare, in green infrastructure. As we recover, we need to be really smart on how to invest these dollars. There's going to be stimulus, but we need to be smart about it, because we're spending a lot of money right now. All governments are spending a lot of money right now, and so we need to ensure that we get the results that we want, both on the economic side, and that we leverage that economic stimulus to get us the equity that we want as a society, the environmental issues that we want as a society. I think that there's great opportunities. As you know, I do a lot of work on housing in the city of Toronto, and that's very much how we're looking at it, is not only how we're responding, for example, to deal with some of the homeless population, the homeless issues that we need to deal in order to respond to the pandemic, but can we create some permanent solutions out of this so that the money is stretched, that we have a better result at the end of all this. So I think all of us are starting to have those conversations. All orders of government are looking at some of these projects and some of this situation this way.
Yeah, Anna's quite right, Angie. So the most important thing, and I think the within our earliest focus on people, was to address the most vulnerable. So we put in 157 million right away into helping the most vulnerable and those women that were in difficult situations. 50 million put in to help with homelessness. So that was a focus and continues to be a focus. So we also the GST HST tax credit for seniors that are on a low income, that was increased on a one-time $400, I think, for about an individual, about $600 for a family extra. Today, as Nina pointed out, with seniors, the OAS, those that receive OAS, Old Age Security, $300 more dollars that they will receive, plus those that are on the guaranteed income supplement. Again, our most vulnerable, lowest income seniors will get another $200. But this all comes from listening to our partners at the municipal and provincial level, and then working together and hearing from Canadians where they're having their challenges. But it is to bridge us over to the other side, so that we can emerge stronger, as we said, and we understand that there is no other way but doing this all together. This Team Canada approach must continue for us to be successful.
I mean, this is just as much about economic development and impact as it is about getting out of the pandemic. And having said that, Nina, you had mentioned that you'd also looking for some ideas. So we have one for you around procurement. And it's actually a question for all 3 levels of government. It does seem like funding is introduced daily. First of all, they want to know where all this money is coming from. And, if you really would like to help stimulate and accelerate the economy and help small businesses, why not make it more of a playing field for small business to bid for government contracts? It's complex, lengthy. Why not make it a requirement that large companies or consultants be mandated to subcontract a percentage of their work to local and small business? It's the only way that I would have a chance to work with government. It could be fast and involves a lot less red tape.
Well, great question, because pre-COVID-19, we were actually working on our procurement process because we felt that it was not a level playing field. And when we came into government, it was one thing we heard a lot from our small businesses, that they were not able to bid on any of our government's projects. So we are changing the procurement process. And like I said, this was pre-COVID-19, so that they are able to start bidding as well, so that everyone is on a level playing field. And we've actually had some success with that, because a lot of companies that we spoke to, we've shown them the process. Unfortunately, of course, it is somewhat on hold until we do manage to get through this. But like I said, through our Ontario Together website, we have had something over 20,000 people come to us with great suggestions, great ways on how they want to help us through COVID-19, whether it's building or providing us with masks, with gowns, people retooling. The auto industry have been able to retool. Our beer industry have been able to retool. Our spirits and wine have been making sanitizer for us. It really has been a great way to see how our businesses have come together, small and large. But as time goes on, certainly that's something that we could be looking into, where if a large corporation has won a bid, how we could perhaps work with them to give some of that contracting out to some smaller players in the field. But we want to give those smaller players also the ability to bid on some of the contracts. So maybe it's a matter of taking a large contract and maybe piecing it out so that more people can bid for those contracts. Because I think it's extremely important to allow everyone to have that opportunity to work with our government. And that's what we want to see, because we know small business is our backbone, and something close to 70 to 80% of our people work in small businesses. So they're all there, and especially at the current time where the challenges are extremely large, where many of our small businesses coming out of this are really going to need that opportunity. So I'd like to thank the question that came in.
Thank you, Nina. So everyone, we have 5 minutes left. So I could sit here all day, and so could everybody watching. There's tons of questions. There is, like I said, I will combine all these questions and send it to the panelists, so they can follow. We'll be following up with them directly. Some consideration for the procurement process, both Anna and Peter as well, please. I'd really like to thank you all for your time, for helping us launch this series. We really look forward to keeping the conversation going. Keep up the fantastic work. Thank you. We know that sometimes you hear criticisms a lot louder than you hear compliments. So, during this pandemic, small businesses, our Portuguese community, and our governments, everybody has stepped up and is working together. But as you have heard today, our small businesses need help. So thank you for taking the time to listen to their comments and concerns. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody and turn it back over to our president, Eduarda.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Angie, today for moderating today's conversation with a list of questions from the audience and the responses from our panel of guest speakers. Anna, Peter, and Nina, on behalf of the Federation, thank you for keeping us informed and connected. To reiterate the words of our guests, we are all in this together, Team Canada. So create your own ripple of kindness and your actions will have a far-reaching effect. Once again, thank you to our today's event sponsors, MDC Media, Camoins Radio and TV, ACS Productions Sound and Lighting, and EzoNetworks, who made it all possible for us to virtually participate. Furthermore, thank you to all of our corporate sponsors for their ongoing support. This is truly a proud moment for the Federation. The speaker series were made possible through the diligence and perseverance of board directors and co-curators, Vice President Ulysses Pratas, Mario Rosado, Chair of the Business Development Committee, and today's moderator, Angie Camara, as well as the Federation Office Manager, Matthew Correa. I would also like to personally thank the entire board for their input and support of the speaker series. Obrigada a todos. To everyone, save the date and join us on May 26th for the next speaker series with a panel of government representatives who will discuss how various municipalities are planning to support main streets. Registration is now open on the Federation website. So on behalf of the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business and Professionals, we thank you all for joining us. Stay safe and adeus.
Deus. Obrigada.
Obrigada. Ciao.
Thank you.